Good evening. With a strong G4 magnetic storm forecast early this morning about 2 hours before dawn, you can probably guess where our favorite space nerd was. Clambering for the best vantage point, for what promised to be a show almost as good as the Mother's Day Geomagnetic Storm on the 10th of May, QR5 grabbed some great Aurora images from Mount Martha. Tell us more about the storm and the spectacular images that have been coming in from all around the world.
Yes, thanks, Naomi. It's great to be with everyone tonight. It's been an absolutely amazing 24 hours here around the world. So just absolutely incredible. So I just want to back up a bit. The space weather forecast was very strong and positive. And a couple of days ago, there was a couple of solar flares, which are a little bit smaller than a couple that happened last week. So last week there was a huge magnitude 7.1 followed by very quickly by magnitude 9.0, and they kind of amounted to not a lot, but there was a bit of aurora that came through on the back end of it. There was some problems, I believe, listening to people who know much more about these things than I do, that there was a bit of a problem with the way the magnetic field was orientated when it came through. So the one that happened last week with the really big X 9.0 didn't produce the strongest storms we were expecting to see. However, not to be outdone, a couple of small X 1.8, I believe, which was a much smaller flare. And there's an important difference here. Those who study space weather will tell you there's a difference between a solar flare and a coronal mass ejection, which is a lot of matter that comes off the sun. So this emission or ejection of matter from the sun was much stronger. There's a lot more material in the smaller X 1.8 flare than there was in the 9. So anyway, there were two that happened quite close together. One was traveling a bit slower, and the second one was traveling a bit faster behind it. So what happened was these two sort of geomagnetic storms were very much directly orientated towards Earth, and they traveled, don't know the exact time, but we'll have a look at that in a minute. And they arrived just before dawn today. So we're very blessed to have a number of satellites in orbit that pick up the signs of incoming coronal mass ejections and space weather and solar wind and all these kind of things. So CMEs and everything. So all that data is collected by the satellites, and then space weather people around the world, which we'll have a look at some of the, it's called SWIPSI, the Space Weather Prediction Service. They have a great service where they will predict what is going to happen and give people an idea, because it's not only just people who like to go out in the great outdoors and photograph auroras. You know, there's safety concerns around satellites and aviation, and large geomagnetic storms can scintillate the GPS of various systems that we rely on. So all of that is quite significant and pertinent. Space weather is very, very important. So I'll go down here and slip forward to this slide. So what happened was this. So nothing to see here, lots, things coming. And then all of a sudden we see at some of the satellites at the L1 point, we see some activity starting to happen. The solar wind, the speed of it, which I think is not actually on this graph. But anyway, some of the data here, you can see there's two factors here, the BT and the BZ, which are tracked. And when the BZ gets down to about minus 20 odd, we know that there's a really nicely aligned or magnetically aligned incoming CME. So that was kind of picked up about here. It didn't. This is where the space satellite picked it up. It wasn't actually kind of visible at my location, at least, until about here. So these are where my photos, the ones that are screening in the background, we'll talk a bit more about them in a minute, but they were at about 1800 to 19, probably 17 to 1800, 1850 UTC on the 10th, which was between 3:30 and 5 a.m. local Melbourne time here in Australia. So that was really good. The bad news for us was that just after the sun came up, the magnetic storm, which was kicking along nicely at about our general G3 level, kind of went blasted out to a G4 and almost made it to a G5. I think those scientists who study such things will make their rulings after they carefully study the data, but it got very close. So there's a scale called the KP index, which if you get to KP8, it's generally a really solid magnetic G4 magnetic storm. The G being the geomagnetic rating scale there, and so that kind of kicked in here. So we're getting some lovely auroras through right up till dawn was about here, and then about 2 hours after dawn, you would have seen around the world people just absolutely amazing images. So Australia did not get the best of it, probably. But what we got was absolutely fantastic. So no complaints from this little space nerd. It was very good. And as we go through the images, we'll show you a little bit more about it. We'll talk about the cameras that we used, etc. So here we had this was amazing. It was like, now when I said there were two magnetic storms coming in, this was the first one, and this was the second one we knew was going to be much stronger based on the coronagraph and all the satellite images of our mostly harmless yellow K dwarf. So after the sunrise, it obviously one thing you got to remember here: 80% of the people in the world live in the northern hemisphere. So there's not a lot of us in the southern hemisphere, and there's a lot of ocean in the southern hemisphere. So the bits of Australia, New Zealand, the little bottom end of South Africa, and the bottom end of the Americas, kind of there's not a lot there in the southern hemisphere. So in the northern hemisphere, this was in the night side for those, not so much. Well, the northern hemisphere were getting it at the same time as us, obviously, but those that were on the night side a couple of hours after Australia's sunrise really got a show all around the world, whether it was in South Africa or I think Perth kind of snuck into the window a little bit. I saw some great images from the Perth Observatory this morning, so that was absolutely fantastic. I don't have the fancy kit that a lot of good Aurora hunters have, where they take the beautiful time-lapse photos and have satellites and meteorites and planes going through while the Aurora does its dance. That's I haven't got to that level yet, but having lived in Melbourne for 24 years, the solar cycle is an 11-year cycle, and the last one was very quiet, so we got almost nothing. So it was kind of this year has been a real treat for me, because it's the first time I've ever seen auroras, and I've seen 3 now, and I'm very excited about that. So let's just go back to the photos for a bit. You can see here some of the images. I don't normally give plugs for Apple, but I just have to say the iPhone 14 is one of the finest cameras ever built. So some of these images here, 3 of them are from my DSLR Canon. I think that one and the previous one were. And then these ones, which this was a little bit later into the show where there was more going on, and we're getting into that time where it was definitely pushing into a G4 at about this stage. Still probably a very high G3, but it was just stunning. Now, this particular, I did get some beautiful images back in August down at Flinders, which has got a very nice dark sky site. You'll see the skyline here is a bit lighter. The reason for me selecting this site is this is the observation point at Bird Rock Beach in Mount Martha. And what I wanted to get, and you'll see in this image here, actually achieved that by getting some height above the water in Port Phillip Bay, so I get some nice reflections off the Aurora. So that was great. We've got some lovely pillars here. The ones that we saw back in August were a little more yellow. You'll see these ones here are quite purple. I believe, I'm not an expert on this, but I believe the more nitrogen in the charged particles, the higher the purple end of the color is. There's obviously different sorts of makeup of the charged particles gives you some sort of different colors. What I really loved though was some of the dark lanes in between these. It's the dark lane in the middle of that one was quite amazing. I thought that was really interesting. So these are called pillars. So we have pillars. Often you'll see veils, which are the curly sort of swerved ones. We're not really far enough south to get any of those because they're usually more higher in the sky, more overhead. So because we're minus 38 degrees, not sure why that has stopped. Because we're minus 38 degrees, we're kind of we're looking out at it at the horizon. So it's kind of like these potentially 150 kilometers away, very high in the atmosphere. So the fact that we can see them is amazing. But they don't swirl around in the veils. So the ones that have got veils, when they swerve around and make nice curtains, all those, we don't typically see them here in Victoria. We're not complaining. We've got lots of good action this week. So we'll settle for the pillars and the cosmic, the particle beams, or whatever you want to call them, and some nice little dark lanes of gaps in the images there, which I thought this dark lane here is really beautiful. There's a couple there as well. So it was certainly worth the trip. What I love about these images, what I was trying to get, is the colour of the water in Port Phillip Bay here, where the colour is just lighting up the water and making it look really nice. So this was very early on in the session. So quite often you'll see when you're looking at auroras, there might be next to nothing, and then all of a sudden you'll see a little bit of a red glow, and then you'll see the pillars, and you'll be able to make them out with the naked eye even, and see, wow. And just before dawn, as the sun was coming up, it was just quite eerie because the sunrise, I don't know if it was the shadow of the earth in the sun, was kind of encroaching across the bottom of the Aurora, and was almost like, I don't know. I don't know that there was a correlation between the shadow of the earth dropping down. I don't know what was going on there, but it just seemed like they were just hanging there, and then they just stopped and above the horizon. It was quite amazing just to see that. It was just beautiful to watch. So very, very exciting display. I believe So I think this one here was getting very strong G3. We were nudging KP of 7.67 at that stage, so it was just shy of a G4. But I think probably by the end it was clearly showing what I was seeing. I was expecting it to be a G4, and certainly it's been reported as such. G4 plus. The what's really interesting is that the weather apps. So every I'll show you here. The weather apps are really cool. So you've got there's actually a reasonable, it's starting to drop off now, but an hour ago it was saying that there was still quite a high chance of catching an Aurora. So that the weather apps are really quite good in that they'll give you, they'll can't really see there. They'll give you good coverage, and I have found, I know a lot of the professional Aurora hunters and weather scientists go, yeah, they're kind of as accurate as they can be, but they're not always that reliable. I've found them pretty good myself. But one of the things I noticed last night when I was driving down in the car was, as I could see on the horizon, it was getting pretty, even from inside the car, I could see there was Aurora on the horizon, and I was driving southwest, and the iPhone, I was watching the compass on the iPhone to see if there was any scintillation happening, and I'm driving down the highway, and I probably need to look into this a bit more, but I don't know if it was because the phone was inside the car and it was just disturbing it as much, but I was driving down and I was heading like southwest, and you could see, obviously I was heading further south, so the minus 38.15, I think it was increasing slowly as I was driving, but all of a sudden it would start going down instead of going up, and then I looked at the compass and it was going, you're heading northwest. I cannot possibly be heading northwest. I've been driving this direction. So I'm not sure how the iPhone works, whether it's getting the GPS off the satellite, and because driving it picks up the direction from how fast the rate of change of the south and east, the longitude and latitude coordinates are changing, and then it's going, okay, you're heading in this direction, therefore this is, but the compass setting like slewed from southwest or south, went all the way to northwest and north, and I'm still driving in the same direction. So I suspect, I don't know, it's not a proper sample. I've taken some screenshots to see if I can look at it a bit more, but it looked to me like there was a bit of funky stuff going on with the GPS coordinates on the phone. So I thought that was interesting. So anyway, just a little update from here in Melbourne, Victoria. This is absolutely beautiful morning in the pre-dawn. Probably if I went out again tonight, we might catch a bit more. My next goal is to get the beach boxes at Mount Martha backlit by an Aurora. So that might be our next target. So we've got the one from the high view from the Mount Martha lookout there at Bedrock Beach. So just a big shout out to everyone who's liked and shared the images. Thanks very much for that. It was much appreciated. We always like to like and share each other's work, and appreciate everyone who's out there enjoying the incredible space weather that we've been experiencing. So hopefully we'll get plenty more this year. That will be a great thing. So stay safe, everyone. Get out there and enjoy. Make sure your batteries are charged up before you leave, and get out there and enjoy the Aurora. So hopefully we'll see some more. And I just thought I would bring you some live coverage. Well, it's not live coverage. The problem with live is that as soon as you go to video mode on the iPhone, the F ratio is 2.7 for a photo, and a 3-second image of these auroras is really spectacular. But as soon as you go to video mode, it changes the entire format of the camera and you just can't see anything. So I'd love to do a live stream of the actual aurora as it was happening, but I think I would need some special equipment for that. So, and I'd have to think that through. But so it's not exactly live tonight. These were the images we got this morning about probably about 15, 16 hours ago now. So yeah, just wanted to just share it with you, and hope you enjoyed the coverage tonight from QR5 Sabre, where we bring you lots of news and information about cybersecurity, capture the flag, space, domain, space weather, all sorts of things to do with the 5 domains: land, sea, air, space, and cyber. So I'm just going to sign off. Thanks for hosting, Naomi, and opening up the show, and wishing everyone around the world a great evening, and hope you all get out and see the aurora and have plenty of your own favorite snapshots of the images. So thanks everyone for joining, and we'll probably send this around a few times so everyone gets to see it. And thank you very much. Do like and subscribe, particularly the YouTube and the Twitter videos. That'll be great. Helps us as digital creatives to build our audience and amplify our videos. So thank you very much. I'm going to sign off and leave you with the beautiful Aurora G4 at Mount Martha this morning.